Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Giglio, and I'm the CAD Administrator for Bedford County 911 in Bedford, Virginia. And my talk today is on vulnerabilities in 911. So, in the past, 911 networks were closed networks, the computer-aided dispatch part of it. The reason was CJIS, or the Criminal Justice Information System Network, had that requirement. Also, there was no real need to open it up. Everything that the dispatchers needed was right in front of them. However, in the last 10 years, people have thought of ideas of sensors out in the field to set up alerts for dispatchers to know. Some examples are gunshot detectors, which are a real hit on the 4th of July. And then also, what we have is a panic button system set up in the school. So when a button's pressed, a window pops up on the dispatcher's workstation. In order to have that, they have to have outside access. So they've started to open up the networks, and the IT department has never had to deal with that before. So that's a new thing for 911. The other things that I'm going to talk about are emerging things like swatting and hoax calls, and then also we've always had to deal with the telephone system going down. So before I go on, I'm going to just do a quick overview of what 911 is made of. There are 3 computers here, 3 keyboards, 3 mice, 6 monitors, 1 foot pedal to control the radio system, and 1 headset to rule them all. So here is the radio system. I don't talk much about that. Harris, for us, handles it, or Motorola, or whatever radio system they use. We just generally let them handle it. This here is the phone system that I forgot to log in for this picture. And that phone system handles the 911 lines, which are priority, and then it handles the non-emergency lines, which I will sometimes refer as the admin lines. It's the same thing. This in the middle is the computer-aided dispatch computer. That has the software that the dispatchers use the most, that has the mapping system, the NCIC, VSIN, and all the criminal history stuff on it, and any outside applications that they have. I forgot to mention the phone system also handles weird things like, for example, in some places they have 311 or whatever that goes to there. Ours, we have ring downs. If you're not familiar with ring downs, they're very old. And their circuit where someone picks up the phone and it rings down to dispatch. The phone system is a little complicated. Well, not really, but there's 911 lines, which are priority lines, and then there's non-emergency admin lines. The 911 lines are on a public switch telephone network. That's E911 and regular 911. And if you're not familiar with the difference between enhanced 911, that's with the location. Regular 911 is just dial up. And there's no anti-alley or anything. There's wireless truck groups and wireline. So all the wireless calls come in a certain set of trunk groups. All the wireline or landline come in on another set. They don't go on each other's. So in the future, and for 2020 for my department, and by 2022, Virginia is going to be all NEXTGEN 911, which is the future of 911 phone system. It's going to be voice over IP, and that runs on a private network called the EZNet, which is the Emergency Services IP network. That itself is going to be very new because that opens up even more risk with malware and others because of the connectivity between the phone system and the dispatch network. The non-emergency lines are always going to be analog, even after NEXTGEN 911. They are on a separate circuit than the 911 lines. These are by themselves, and these are something else. So the first thing I want to talk about is telephony denial of service attacks. It is way easier than you think to do. And I'm going to give my center as an example. We have 4 wireless lines, 8 wireline lines. And so if an event happens and 5 people call up with a cell phone, The last one will get a busy signal. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's a busy signal. And why is this important? Because on our 911 lines, this is 2018 statistics, 15% of our calls came from a landline. 85% came in through 4 lines. So I'm not sure how many people got a busy signal, but how easy is it to do? There's several ways. The first one is someone was working on the bug bounty with Apple, and they sent out a link on Twitter. They clicked the link. It made their phone dial 911 over and over and over and over. It can be done through that way, and when it does that, there's no controlling it. And the reason it mostly happened in Maricopa County is I think the person who posted the Twitter link was from around there. So Dallas had the same situation, but this time it was a T-Mobile issue. They just kept randomly dialing 911 over and over, and there's no way to stop it unless T-Mobile fixes it. So the non-emergency lines, those can also get TDOS'd. Those ones, we have 8 in our center. These are very important too. You would think, oh, 911's pretty important, but so are these. The reason is that 62% of our calls come in on these admin lines, or the non-emergency lines. 22% are outbound calls. All outbound calling occurs on these lines, and only 16%, and this is 2018 statistics, 16% were 911 calls. So this is our total amount of calls last year. That accounts for 84% of our call volume and usage is on these lines, so they're very important. And they're published phone numbers, so that makes it easier to access them. With 911, you can call a number and get a 911 line, but it's not published, and I usually find it in the Verizon Bible, I call it. But most people don't know about that. So with NEXTGEN 911, I don't have any hands-on experience with it, but it's still going to have the same issue because when they issue us the lines for the system, they're going to be the same amount that we have currently. Because you can't give 100 lines to someone if only 2 people answer it. It's just ridiculous. But with NEXTGEN 911 comes way more benefits. What we're going to see in NEXTGEN 911 is we're going to see video being sent to the dispatcher, pictures, and anything else I could think of, actually. So the computer-aided dispatch network is the computer network and their servers. There's the law enforcement side, which is records management system, or RMS, and computer-aided dispatch, which is the dispatcher side, CAD. They work together, but they're 2 separate systems. So CAD has the mapping, which has the layers with police beats, fire boundaries, EMS boundaries, all sorts of where the schools are located, all sorts of information, mile markers, all that's built into the mapping system. So if somebody gets a hold of that database, they have pretty much all your operational information. There's social security numbers in the CAD because when they look up a subject, that input information from NCIC is put into CAD. So you have people's social security address all tied to a call. Medical info, EMS, and all that. And then we also have something called the internal alley, which is a database each 911 center maintains of special addresses. Either it's people who are risks to law enforcement, people who have medical issues, like they are on dialysis or something. Also, anything that the citizen feels that we need to know to help them better when we come to their house, they're going to call us. I put it in, no questions asked. And actually, people do give us where their spare key is to their house. So we do have that information for some houses. And then this also has operational information with like units for our state, local police that we have. So The RMS side, or the law enforcement, and the criminal justice information side that's NCIC, VESIN, DMV, so having access into that is an even bigger issue because the FBI would handle it at that point. RMS has active investigations, warrants, and social security numbers, personal information, police reports, domestic abuse situations, that's all in RMS. So the phone system has to send its data to the CAD network somehow. I'll tie this all together, I promise. So the phone system sends automatic number identification, or ANI, or automatic location identifier, or ANI. They also do text and 911. That's all done over analog 911 currently, or E911. And that is done through a serial cable. And I think most places are. But with NEXTGEN 911, you can't send video over a serial cable. I mean, you can. We've all had dial-up. But it'll take years. So with that, you need a bigger pipe, which it's probably going to be Ethernet, which means that any kind of malware, once it hits the CAD network, can slip into the phone system or the NEXTGEN 911 system. And NEXTGEN 911, one of its big benefits besides that is that the EZNet is going to tie all 911 centers in the region and the state together. So it could hop from you to your phone system on the EZNet, hop over to Franklin County, Fairfax County, wherever, and then get into their CAD network. So that's the kind of risk that we need to think about when we move to NEXTGEN 911. In my opinion, the biggest threat to the CAD network is these mobile data terminals. They're in every law enforcement vehicle, they're in fire and EMS, some of them. They're at home, they're at McDonald's, sometimes Krispy Kreme. Who knows where they're at? And what they do is they take it out and they get on the network there. You have no idea what they're going to take home from that and bring back to your network. And I thought I was a little crazy until I started reading. There's Baltimore. There's the ransomware attack on their 911 center. And it mentions, I highlighted it, affecting messaging functions within the computer-aided dispatch system. The message functions, the message switch, is the server that sends the data from the MDTs to the CAD network. It's like a switchboard. And from the CAD network back to the MDTs. So I'm pretty sure it came from the MDTs. Also, they mentioned that they went into manual mode. That means pen and paper. So this also happened in Tennessee, so it's not a one-off, where the mobile police car and the ambulance systems, the hackers found a back door through that. That's the MDTs. So they're a big risk, and they're something that you have no control over once it leaves you, but you should be able to tighten it down to protect yourself. We're back to Baltimore again, and I don't want to rag on Baltimore because they're taking it for the team here, but this is every place. We just have, there's not a lot of money because we're using tax dollars, and taxpayers don't like to see a lot of taxes, so everything's reduced, and sometimes we pay the price. But it's not us that's paying the price. I mean, we'll get fired. It's you guys as citizens who need these services that are going to pay the price. So I just want to say thank you, Baltimore, for letting us all be aware of what a problem this is. So now my favorite is swatting and prank hoax 911 calls. These are starting to happen a lot more now because with voice over IP and all the ways that you can spoof your number or all the ways that you can, all the technology that's now is made it easier because in the past, they would usually use a TTY relay. If you're not familiar with this, it's pretty old school. As a computer, first of all, it's meant for the hard of hearing or deaf. It is not meant to be something to be abused. But a computer user will dial their modem up into the TTY relay, and then they will have them call a non-emergency line. Most of the swatting stuff happens over a non-emergency line. And then they'll talk with the dispatcher and make the fake call. Well, now voice over IP, it's way easier, way, way easier. So the first thing is you can use it for harassment and bullying, like this lady in Akron, Ohio. Apparently, people would call up and say she had drugs in her house, and all they did was keep coming over and tossing her place. So that would probably be annoying. Then it can result in property damage. This is a local situation. They busted the door down. Their biggest concern was who's going to pay for the door, which they're pretty lucky. However, it can result in death of a first responder or a citizen, in this case in Wichita, where it was over less than $5 and Call of Duty. And he said, I'm going to SWAT you. And the other guy said, yeah, here's my address. And he gave an old address. Some poor guys are sitting watching TV. The cops are swarmed. He comes out, makes a hand gesture that someone didn't like, and he's dead. All over Call of Duty. Before I continue on, this is my PSA. Social media is not emergency services. Maybe you guys would never use it at that, so I'm going to say internet. Social media is not emergency services. People use it as such, and it is not. Here's a case in point. This message was given on our 911 Facebook page. I had messaging open because we were doing recruitment, and we were talking to possible people to take the test to be a dispatcher, and then this came in. And my favorite is that he said he wants to die of lead poisoning, which means he wants to shoot himself. And he said he was on 81, couldn't say where, he wanted to kill himself, take people out, he had a gun. So as I'm talking to him, there's a lot of red flags. He had a laptop in the car, but no cell phone. But then what you have to do, I called the state police, and they went on a couple-hour, 3-hour chase looking for this guy up and down 81. And I don't know why this was a hoax, but also I was kind of browsing around on Facebook, and I saw this. This lady said, attention everyone, if there's an emergency, I saw a bus that said, help, please call 911. So she posted on Facebook. Why didn't she just call 911? Because in the comments of the original post, everyone was like, I reposted, but no one mentioned dialing 911. There is nothing that replaces dialing 911. Those gunshot detectors, the panic buttons in the schools, and any other safety device that people can devise will never replace 911, calling it. So we also have some other risks to first responders. They can use hoax calls to manipulate services and resources. You can use the Freedom of Information Act to obtain information that you can use for nefarious reasons or harassment. And then the actual physical security of the building, which not a lot of people think about, especially in smaller places where they're country, there's not a lot of crime. They don't really think about it. I'm going very fast, sorry. So I did a FOIA request from a phone call where a sergeant called me on the admin line, and they transferred him to me, and I thought about it. I thought, what if I was a criminal, let's pretend that, and there was an officer that busted me or my cousin or something. And when they call you or talk to you in our department, they're restricted phone numbers. So you can't ever get the cell phone number of a law enforcement officer because they're restricted. I thought, well, how can I get that number? So you might not hear this. We're going to try. Or not. All right, well, it's not going to work. I'll tell you what it was. You got the dial tone from when they transferred over the call. So I had omitted the last part of the number because it's actually my number. But you are able to FOIA request a transfer, get the dial tones, use a DTMF decoder, and get the phone number of anyone, the mayor, whoever. Like if you call 911, say, can you transfer me to the mayor? they'll go ahead and do it. Then you FOIA request that, and you get either the cell phone number or a number that normally you're not able to get through just going to the staff directory. So physical security. In my building, we're in the basement. That's where they stick everyone they don't want to think about. It's very much often overlooked. Dispatchers are too busy to verify who is at the door or who's coming in. So if you walk in and say, well, our phones are done by Verizon. If you walk in and say, I'm with Verizon, and they're like, okay, come on in, and they let you in. The other day, I walked by the kitchen, and there's this guy in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you? And he was like, yeah, I'm cleaning the ice machine. And I'm like, do you have ID? And he was like, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I'm like, well, I'm asking you now. And he showed me ID. I went to my office. I called upstairs. I said, do you get maintenance on the ice machine? And the staff administrator up there was like, yeah, we get it every 6 months. And I'm like, okay, just making sure. But they just let anyone in. And even deputies, when they have a class in our emergency operations center, we'll leave the door open, propped open, so the public can just walk on in. And they don't watch it. And you're like, well, I didn't, a lot of the dispatchers didn't think it was a big deal until last year when this headline came out. So this woman was beaten nearly to death by some guy who just walked in and hit her down. Now, it was a small place. She was the only dispatcher. So you got to be really concerned about that. I don't know, crazy people are crazy everywhere, and they'll beat up anyone. So I believe I've only been talking for like 20 minutes. So to sum it all up, these aren't all of them, but these are the things that I think about pretty much every day, and these are the things that I'm hoping I can get feedback from you guys, because you know a lot more than I do, but I know also my side of 911, so I can figure out new ways to protect us and you from any of these vulnerabilities. And I also, to get political for 1 second, urge you to go to this link and please read about reclassifying dispatchers to first responders. Right now they are just secretaries. Does your secretary walk a mother through CPR on her infant baby when they can't breathe and then dispatch EMS to them? No. These people do, and all they are secretaries in their classification, and they need to be made more because they work more than they should. They work a lot harder than they should. And I'm sorry. So that's it. Sorry. Are there any questions? Okay, not you first. You in the back first. That's a tough one. He asked what sort of protections do you see going in place for swatting? The first protection is communication between the dispatchers and law enforcement in the field. The second is the dispatcher's experience and spidey sense, because the very experienced dispatchers can tell certain things. The way people talk, they can know if there's more in the background than the person's saying, whatever. I'm sure everyone's heard about the pizza delivery call on the internet where someone called and delivered pizza and there was really a domestic violence situation. Experienced dispatchers can figure that out. So between those two, they have to dispatch to the call, but they don't have to shoot, break down the door, or anything until they kind of get an idea. So there's really no protection against it. It's just communication and experience that I see. Are you, Kevin?
So with the social media part of it, what advantage, or is there a requirement that
Okay, so he was asking, is it a requirement to have a Facebook page for 911, and is there an advantage to it? Well, there's no requirement. We don't have to do anything on Facebook if we don't want to. In fact, I only had the messages on that one time for recruitment because it was easier to communicate. I'm a really good Facebook stalker. So I usually keep it turned off, and I keep it turned off for sheriff's office as well, because I don't need that kind of communication. However, the advantage of it is that I also use my Facebook page to post road closings, automatic weather alerts, any kind of situation that may help the citizens, I post on there. And they really like the weather alerts. Those are automated. You know, everybody likes to know if there's going to be a tornado. And we just actually had like a mini tornado about a month ago. So it was very useful then for that. So I have one thing to say about swatting and hoax calls. I do believe, and this is my tinfoil hat moment of the day, that you can, if you can coordinate an attack to obtain the data from the CAD network and get the GIS information in particular, to know the operational information of beats and response zones, then you can go ahead and place calls for large events in strategic parts of the county to reduce the resources. These resources are already stretched by, if there are two large bomb threats or whatever, that would reduce a lot of resources that they're over here, you can come over here and do something. And I think that it's fully capable, and I think it's happening now. I think that there has been some testings with bomb threats, and that's from my experience with a case that we had a couple years ago. So, tinfoil hat, take it or not. So, anything else? Go ahead.
Are you familiar with CopSync software?
Very familiar.
Okay. Well, I work in the public schools in Virginia County, and
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
well, when the sheriff's department partnered with public schools so that we have people in the buildings, there's some conversation about different technologies to use, and ShotSpotter was one of them, and CopSync is ultimately what the schools went with, which knock on wood, it's never needed to be used for its intended purpose, but frequently gets used for its unintended purposes, like very recent.
False alarms?
Oh, well, false alarms from teachers that just click in the wrong spot and then freak out for that 15 or 30-second warning and then cancel it. But we had one where a teacher could not find a student, and that was the time that she decided to use software that told every law enforcement agent in the county that we were getting shot up. So I guess this is just a bit of an opinion. I guess I'm asking out of you. Was that the wrong choice for my county schools?
Give me a minute. Are you Brunswick County? Do you want to, can you?
Fauquier.
Fauquier?
Yeah.
So you're using the Brandon ComSync. Did they switch to Enforce 911? Or did you go with the, see, we got through the CopSync because we went through that company, Brandon CopSync.
Yeah.
And then they switched to their own application, Enforce 911. And we actually had the CopSync calculator, we called it, where we tick marked every false alarm we got. But we did get one where a kid was pretty hyped up, either pulled the bus window out or down, slipped out the bus window, and ran into the woods. And that was like the only legitimate use of the CopSync software. I don't like, you do you.
Okay.
I believe that calling 911, that stuff is fine and dandy, but in the heat of the moment, well, I'll just say it, I don't care. We had an active shooter, training to incorporate CopSync into that training. And it stopped working 7 minutes into the situation. And they didn't, I was angry, very angry. And there was no solution to that because they said it shouldn't have happened. And I said, that's fine and dandy. And by the time I asked for, because with government you have to go through certain layers of people to get action done. So by the time that had resolved, they had gotten rid of the logs and everything. So I firmly believe that your phone and dialing 911 is the most important thing. That all of that stuff makes the public appear safe, but it's not. But that's my belief.
I'm with you on that one.
I'm sorry because we were the first in the state to get CopSync, and a lot of people were talked into it with that. And I just, from the dispatch side, it's better to call 911. It's my firm belief. So.
Just something to go with that. It's interesting. Actually, I know Baltimore County quite well. I know you also know as well, real well, that this next gen 911 is going to be a real wave of change. And I think really what it is, I think there's actually an analogy to what we're doing here today, in that the 911 of the future should be like a security operations center, right? You're taking in all modes of communication, and now you're fully digitized. Because what's happened to you guys for years past is you've been on old technology. It's all analog. It's the last bastion of analog technology. So reality is it's to say that 911 is your hub, your sheriff, your police, your fire, your EMS, all your emergency management services come into that hub. So your technology concentration should be at that hub. You know what I mean? And that your dispatchers, to me, talking about reclassify, start getting savvy dispatchers who really understand technology and start raising them up to be more IT savvy and cyber savvy.
In a perfect world, having dispatchers who are more IT savvy would be wonderful. But it's like a 3-month-long process. They take a test. You have to score a certain amount on the test. It's a polygraph, a background check, a panel interview, and then it's 6 months of just sitting with somebody. 6 months of learning the software, and that software is complicated. And then after that, you're still on probation. You're still learning. So I think the better thing, because of all that they have to keep and juggle at the time, is more frequent information security, cybersecurity, technology tutorials about phishing and clicking links and just all the general things that you do with your other users, but stress more importantly that when you wipe out this, you take out something very important. And I think I would love in a perfect world to have that. And we do have very tech savvy. Some of them are good. Some of them are very good with what they know, which is the software. But it's hard to find people as is. A lot of dispatch centers are down staff. We were down, I think, like 40% of our staff. We only had 60% coverage. They were working 60 hours a week on the regular for months. I can't ask them on top of that to do. So that's my belief. But I agree. I wish in a perfect world, I would like all my users to be savvy about what they do and click what they click and what they browse. Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
All right.
It's going to be a brave new world for 911.
Yep, 1 year from now. That'll be mine. Go ahead.
So with the addition of like video and photos for the next gen, is there going to be a heavy amount of training for dispatchers to know what they're looking at if someone sends them a video and it's like this looks like someone's holding a gun, or how does that video information, how is that going to be interpreted?
So you're asking if there's going to be training for when the next gen now gets video and pictures and how they interpret it. Well, it's really easy to answer. Dispatchers don't interpret. They can,
Yeah, so they're just.
they're in,
Yeah.
out.
Email,
They can make, they can, they can say, oh, this feels a little weird. Like in that one, when I called our center, our training guy had texted me. He was like, what's up with the Facebook? And I'm like, should I call? I think I should call to cover ourselves. And he said, yes, in and out. That's what dispatchers do, get information in, they send it out. So what they're going to do when they get that video, because I've seen demos of it, is they're going to actually just forward it to the MDT. So Incident Command will have that video. And I have no idea, but you get cop eyes, apparently. Because I was watching a video of a guy who flicked like a joint out the window at night, and it was black and white grainy VHS DVR videos, and the lieutenant was like, "See right there? He just threw it right out the window." And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Police officers will be able to, if they're, with the experience, will be able to understand that video better than I would, or a dispatcher who doesn't see that kind of stuff, or keep an eye out for a tiny joint this big coming out the window.
But the other side, if you got the wreck on the highway, and you've got paramedics routed to that call, and you got somebody video into you what is actually happening, giving you live situational awareness, it's going to help in how you're, triaging that event.
Yep, and that's going to go straight to EMS, straight to police, straight to law enforcement, through the MDT system, through that message switch.
I just feel the dangerous part of it is that, again, like anything like swatting, you're putting reliance in the public to be a good public to provide good information to you. I see, swatting over the phone, it seems like if you add video and picture to the mix, that would be a swatter's dream come true, that they could now, falsify video and picture information. So I guess it's just a negative opinion on the public at large.
Well,
It seems like it gives them another venue to basically do the bad things they're doing.
that's always going to happen, I guess. I'm not too happy about the video and pictures, because then we enter the world of how much storage, because we have to keep a certain amount of years worth of this stuff, and nobody puts their phone on low quality pictures. No, when they make a video, a 5-minute video could be like, 100 megs or whatever, depending on the quality. That's my issue with it, is it's going to be the storage, and that's something that we're going to have to think about, I guess. So, I guess that's it. Thanks for... Yes. We currently, right now, host 22 years of CAD data, and I'm about to purge whatever the requirement is, but we haven't decided yet. So, yeah. There are requirements, and if it's 7 years, which I think was it 7 years? I think that number 7 was thrown around. If it's 7 years of videos and pictures, and we do 3,000 calls a week, you see what I'm saying? That's a lot. So. Yes, and CAD software is, it's all built almost the same, and it's very old-fashioned. So I guess I'm the analytics to purge. I think it's probably going to fall under my head. So thank you so much. I'm sorry it was so short, but I like the questions. I like talking about it. I'm just nervous. Oh, go ahead. Pause. So that's an interesting point, because, squad cars now are walking Wi-Fi hotspots with VPN direct to the dispatch network. So if they're not set up right, or somebody has, if this car is sitting there on for enough for you to be able to get into there, you are able to do that. Now that's where the user permissions within the database exist. Our people in the field only get read rights from the terminals, except for entering into the CAD call. But warrants is on the RMS, or record management side, and they only have read rights. So if that's set up properly, then they're good. However, there's always going back into the database and getting the, access to that and inserting it in there. It can be done. We probably would, if it was caught, we would be able to, I don't know, that's really a policy, a sheriff's office policy that I'm not sure.
Compliance and actually driven by the state of Virginia, by DSP.
Yeah.
So all your terminals within any sort of squad car, sheriff's vehicles, to be compliant, they have to be using encryption. And they need to have two-factor, multi-factor authentication.
You don't need two-factor for vCIN right now, because
That was supposed to be enacted, I believe, in 2015.
that wasn't. They put it off, because that was my big stress in 2013. I was about to have a baby, and they were going to put it on when I was on maternity leave. So, yes, they keep pushing it, and state police has been able to set it off. Last I checked about it, but the conversation's going to come back around. We're about to get a new CAD system, and I'd like to incorporate two-factor ahead of time, but it's costly. And so, yes, but as of right now that I'm aware, they do not require two-factor, because the last audit I specifically asked that. So, did you have a question, Yo?
No, I was going to ask if the RMS system was compromised. You mentioned that there's federal law enforcement might get involved. Is that the system in particular?
No. CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System, that's NCIC. In Virginia, it's vCIN, Virginia Criminal Information Network or something. State police would handle that, and then whoever after state police would handle that. So we go to the state police for our requirements, and then the state police talks with the FBI regarding. Like, most states require two-factor for access to that network. We don't, because state police.
You've got criminal information on that potential network. You have to be compliant in order to have it.
Yeah. So. Thank you.